Paul has already said, you Christians have divided yourselves up, and some of you are saying that you're following me. And Paul says, I'm glad I didn't baptize a whole lot of you, because you're already using that to tie yourself to me, and you don't need to be doing that. I wasn't crucified for you. You don't need to be baptized in the name of Paul. In fact, he says, Paul didn't send me to baptize, he sent me to preach the gospel. And in cleverness of speech, so that the cross of Christ would not be made void. You see, the problem is human wisdom. Depending on ourselves, depending on our own judgment. And Paul says the cross of Christ will be made void if we depend on human wisdom. Verse 18. The word of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to those who are being saved, the cross of Christ is the power of God. Verse 20. Where's the wise man? You think yourself wise? Where's the wise man? Where's the scribe, the one who is trained in the law? Where's the debater of this age? Has God not made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not come to know God. Why? Because in the wisdom of the world says our salvation is not found in a man hanging on the cross. That's foolishness. How can you believe that salvation comes through a man hanging on the cross? Paul says God chose the foolishness of the world to confound the wise. People who are not spiritually minded aren't going to follow the crucified Savior. God was well pleased through the foolishness of the message preached to save those who believe. For indeed, Jews ask for a sign. The Greeks search for wisdom, but we preach what? Christ crucified. We preach the foolishness of God. Christ crucified. To Jews a stumbling block, to Gentiles foolishness, but to those who are the called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ is the power of God and the wisdom of God. So those people who were saying the power is in being able to speak in foreign languages, oh wow, that's really neat, but the power is in Jesus. And the wisdom is in God, not human wisdom. Not trying to guide ourselves by our own thinking and our own desires, but through the wisdom of God that is found in Jesus Christ. Now look down at chapter 2. Verse 1, Paul says, I came to you, brethren, I did not come with superiority of speech or of wisdom, proclaiming to you the testimony of God. Again, some of them were saying, we can speak in foreign languages. Maybe those who are Apollos, because he was a fiery preacher. A lot of people like fiery preachers. And so Apollos was an eloquent man. That's usually what fiery means, has some fire in them and they're eloquent. And so Apollos had his followers there in the church of Corinth, and Paul said, I myself did not come to you in superiority of speech or of wisdom. I didn't come to you an eloquent man, but I came to you in verse 2, determined to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and Him crucified. That is the heart and the summation of the Christian life. That's the wisdom of God. It's a life that is lived according to Jesus Christ. And in verse 8, verse 7, Paul says, we speak God's wisdom in a mystery, the hidden wisdom which God predestined before the ages to our glory. Paul always says it was a mystery in times past, but now it has been revealed. So it's no longer a mystery. It's revealed in Jesus Christ. He is the fulfillment of that mystery. Paul goes on to say that in verse 8. The wisdom which none of the rulers of this age has understood, for if they had understood it, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. The Corinthians were looking for man's glory. Why is it that you can tolerate a man who's living in an incestuous relationship? Because you're looking for the praise of men. You're looking for the glory of man. And that's what the Christians who had those miraculous gifts were doing. They were looking for glory from men. But Paul says, no, true glory comes from Jesus. He is the Lord of glory. That's why Paul points that out. He is the Lord of glory. And if we want to be glorified by God, then we've got to follow God and do things God's way and not look for that glory here on this earth. Verse 9, just as it is written close from Isaiah the prophet. Things which eye has not seen and ear has not heard, and which have not entered the heart of men, all that God has prepared for those who love Him. That is not a reference to heaven. That is a reference to the age of Jesus Christ, the Messianic age, the period of the church when we have the relationship with God through Jesus Christ. Eye has not seen nor ear heard nor has it entered the heart of man, Isaiah says, the things that God has prepared for those who are in Jesus Christ. That's what Paul has to say about Christ. In a few other passages, chapter 3, verse 1, Paul says that Christ is the foundation of the church. You can't lay any other foundation than that which is laid, which is Jesus Christ. In chapter 5 and verse 7, in that context of a man living in an incestuous relationship, Jesus says Christ is our Passover. And we need to get rid of the unleavened bread of insincerity and untruthfulness. And we need to celebrate Christ as our Passover lamb. Have a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. And a couple of times Paul refers to the fact that God raised Jesus from the dead. Chapter 15 is a big question. What happens when we die? We have that question today, of course. Chapter 15, the Corinthians, some of them were saying there is no resurrection. And Paul says if there is no resurrection, then Jesus himself did not rise from the dead. Because Jesus did rise from the dead, then in fact there is a resurrection. And so in chapter 6 and then again in chapter 15, Paul points out that God did raise Jesus from the dead. Now what about us being in Christ? What does Paul have to say about us being in Christ? Turn back to chapter 1. These are some beautiful words that ought to encourage us about our relationship with God through Jesus Christ. Chapter 1, once again, verse 2. To the church of God which is at Corinth, to those who have been sanctified in Christ Jesus. Saints by calling. The word sanctified and the word saints means the same thing, comes from the same original word. Sanctified in Jesus Christ, saints by calling, with all who in every place call in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, their Lord and ours. What makes you set apart? What makes you special? Some of us can say, well, I'm really good with numbers. Maybe you work in the banking industry. Maybe you work as an accountant. I'm good with numbers. That's great. Maybe I'm good with people. I'm a teacher or I'm a psychologist. Maybe I'm good with science. Maybe I'm good with that type of thing, so I'll work in the medical field. What is it that makes you special? For those of us who are Christians, what makes us special is that we're Christians. That's what separates us from the world. That's what the word sanctified means. That's what the word saint means. It means pulled out of the world and put into service to God in Jesus Christ. And so Paul is telling the church at Corinth, it's not what makes you special that you follow after human wisdom. It's not what makes you special that you have these miraculous gifts. What makes you special is that you're in Jesus Christ. A relationship to God in Jesus Christ. That's what makes us special. And then let's read these verses. Verse 4. I thank my God always concerning you for the grace. What do we have in Jesus Christ? Grace. Undeserved blessings from God. The grace of God which was given you in Christ Jesus. Verse 9. God is faithful. Through whom you were called into fellowship with His Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. We had a fellowship meal last Sunday after our worship. A fellowship meal is when we sit down and we enjoy a meal together, when we converse with one another, we get to know each other better, we become better friends. In Jesus Christ, we sit down with God and we have a meal and we get to know one another better, and we converse with one another. We have fellowship with God from Jesus Christ. Who did Jesus use? He's my fellowship. Look at verse 13. Has Christ been divided? Paul was not crucified for you, was he? Or we baptized in the name of Paul? Christ was crucified for us. Verse 24. To those who are called, the Jews and Greeks, Christ and the power of God and the wisdom of God. What is the power in your life? What is the power that sees you through from day to day? What is the power that allows you to get up in the morning and go through that mundane work? What's the power that allows you to do that day after day? What's the power that gives you the strength to forgive? What's the power that gives you the strength to overcome temptation? What's the power that allows you to humble yourself and to submit to your fellow man? To love your neighbor as yourself? What's the power that allows you to do all that? It's Jesus Christ. The power of God is Jesus Christ. And we mentioned the wisdom of God in Christ. And then verse 30. By His doing, you are in Christ Jesus, who became to us wisdom from God, and righteousness, and sanctification, and redemption. Let's keep those 3 points in mind as we look on over to chapter 6. Turn over to chapter 6. In chapter 6 is the problem what Paul has to deal with, where the Christians were suing one another. That's Christianity, isn't it? I'm going to sue you. There were sue-happy people in Corinth in the first century. Verse 11. Well, verses 9 to 10. Paul says, fornicators, idolaters, adulterers, effeminate, homosexuals, thieves, covetous, drunkards, revilers, swindlers, they will not inherit the kingdom of God. Look at verse 11. Such were some of you. Some of the Christians in Corinth had at one time before they became Christians, they had been fornicators. They had been idolaters. They had been adulterers. They had been homosexual at one time. They had been thieves. They had been covetous. They had been drunkards. They had swindled people at one time. But now, Paul says, verse 11, now you're washed. Now you are sanctified. Now you are justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and in the Spirit of our God. You are washed and you are sanctified and you are justified. Justified is a legal term. Justified is a term that means I have come into the court of law. I have appeared before the judge and he has said, you are innocent. And so Paul says, you were a homosexual at one time, but you've come into the court of law and you stood before God the judge, and God the judge has said, you are innocent in Jesus Christ. Who is Christ? He is our justification. Not because I deserve it, but because God said Jesus was not a homosexual. And so I'll punish Jesus on the cross because you were at one time a homosexual, and now because you are in Jesus Christ and you've left that sinful lifestyle, you were justified. Just as if you had never committed the sin. All of these things that the Christians have done, fornication and adultery and stealing, all of those things that sometimes we've ourselves done, and other things. Who is Jesus to you? Look at verse 15. Do you not know that your bodies are members of Christ? Shall I then take away the members of Christ and make them a members of a prostitute? This was another problem that the church at Corinth had. Some of them apparently believe that because we have a spiritual relationship with God through Jesus Christ, it doesn't matter what I do with a physical body. And so I can go have a sexual relationship with anybody and everybody, and it doesn't touch my spiritual life. And so Paul says, nah, it's not right. Shall I then take away the members of Christ and make them the members of a prostitute? May it never be. But the one who joins himself to the Lord, verse 17, is one spirit with him. We who are Christians are one with Jesus Christ. That's why we don't live in sin. That ought to help motivate us not to sin, because we are one with Jesus Christ. And how can we involve the Son of God in sin? If we realize that we involve Jesus and we involve us in sin, maybe it would help motivate us not to sin. Who is Jesus Christ? He is our sanctification and our justification and our redemption. What else does Paul say about being in Christ? He says in chapter 9 that we are under the law of Christ. Just because we're in grace doesn't mean we're without law. We are under the law. We're under the law of Christ. In chapter 10, verse 16, the passage we read before we observed the Lord's Supper. The Lord's Supper is a time when we participate in the body of Christ. We participate in the blood of Christ. The Lord's Supper is a time when we have fellowship with God in Jesus Christ. And then in chapter 15, verse 58, the Apostle Paul says our work is not in vain in the Lord. And then finally, Paul does emphasize that Jesus is coming again. That's what guides every decision that we make in this life as Christians, is that we know that Jesus is coming again. Turn back to chapter 1, verses 7 and 8. Once again, here at the very beginning of Paul's letter to the church at Corinth, Paul says, I want to come to you and visit you so that you are not lacking in any gift.